used to believe that no matter how complicated families were, death brought clarity. That when someone passed away, at least the truth would surface. I was wrong. The truth didn't come gently. It arrived sealed inside a cream-colored envelope and ripped my life apart without warning. Before I tell you what was written in my father's will, you need to understand something important. I wasn't a bad daughter. I wasn't distant. I wasn't irresponsible. I was the one who stayed. My name is Rachel Monroe. I was 26 years old, living in Dayton, Ohio, when my father, Thomas Monroe, died after a sudden stroke. To the outside world, my father was a respected man. Church on Sundays, a small construction business he built from scratch, a quiet authority people trusted. When he died, the condolences poured in. People talked about his discipline, his fairness, his strong values. No one talked about how silent he could be, how selective his love was. I was the younger daughter. My older brother, Evan, had always been the golden child. He moved to Chicago, chased big dreams, failed twice, and came back asking for help. My father welcomed him with open arms every time. I stayed behind. I helped run the books for Dad's business. I handled client calls. I paid bills when cash flow was tight. I postponed my own plans because family comes first. That's what Dad always said. Family comes first. The funeral was quiet, too quiet. Evan cried loudly. My aunt clutched his arm. People kept glancing at me, probably wondering why I looked so calm. I wasn't calm. I was numb. 3 days later, we sat in the lawyer's office that smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper. The walls were bare, the lighting harsh. This was the room where my father's final decisions would be revealed. The lawyer opened the file. I remember how my hands were folded tightly in my lap, nails digging into my skin. According to Thomas Monroe's last will and testament, I stopped breathing. The house went to Evan. The business went to Evan. The savings account, nearly everything my father had worked for, went to Evan. The lawyer paused. And to Rachel Monroe, I lifted my head. A personal letter. That was it. No assets, no property, no explanation. Just a letter. I felt heat rush to my face. My brother didn't look surprised. He avoided my eyes, staring straight ahead like this was always how it was meant to be. The lawyer handed me the envelope. It was thin. Too thin to carry a lifetime of loyalty. I didn't open it there. I couldn't. My fingers were shaking too badly. Outside, Evan finally spoke. You know Dad didn't mean it personally. I laughed. A sharp, broken sound. Then what did he mean? He didn't answer. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened the letter. It was short. Rachel, you're strong. You don't need what Evan needs. I trust you'll understand. Dad. That was it. No gratitude, no acknowledgement, no apology. Just an assumption. He trusted I'd understand. But what I didn't know then, what no one told me, was that the will wasn't the beginning of the betrayal. It was the cover for something much worse. And once I discovered the truth behind my father's decision, there would be no going back.
For days after reading my father's letter, I carried it everywhere, like a wound I couldn't cover. You're strong. You don't need what Evan needs. That sentence replayed in my head while I brushed my teeth, while I sat in traffic, while I lay awake at night staring at the ceiling of my small apartment in Dayton. Strength, apparently, was a reason to be erased. Independence was a punishment. Loyalty was invisible. I didn't talk to my brother. He didn't talk to me either. Silence became our new language. I went back to work at the construction office the following Monday, even though technically it wasn't mine anymore. Evan hadn't officially taken over yet, and clients still recognized me. They still trusted me. Some even asked why I looked so tired. I smiled and said I was fine. I wasn't. That office had been my second home for 6 years. I knew every invoice, every client history, every weak spot in the business. I had kept it afloat during slow seasons when my father's health started declining. I had skipped vacations, skipped opportunities, skipped parts of my life because I believed I was investing in something that would one day include me. Now, I felt like a guest waiting to be asked to leave. One afternoon, while organizing old files to hand over to Evan, I came across a locked drawer in my father's desk. I had seen it 100 times, but never opened it. It felt wrong before. Now, something pulled at me. Not curiosity, but instinct. Inside were documents that made my hands go cold. Bank transfers, loan agreements, and emails printed and highlighted, all addressed to Evan. Large sums of money had been transferred to him over the past 3 years, quietly, regularly. Money that never appeared in the business accounts, money my father had told me didn't exist when I asked for a raise. And then I saw the email that changed everything. Dad, Rachel doesn't need to know. She'll just worry. I'll pay it back once the expansion works. My chest tightened. Expansion? I kept reading. My father had taken out a second mortgage on the house, the same house he left to Evan, to fund Evan's failed investment in Chicago. The business had covered losses I was told were unexpected expenses. The savings account I thought we were building together had been drained long before the will was written. Suddenly, the will made sense. There was nothing left to divide, except responsibility. My father hadn't chosen Evan because he loved him more. He chose him because he owed him, and he left me out because I was the only one he trusted to survive the truth. I sat at my desk long after the office closed, staring at the documents. The betrayal felt different now, heavier, more complicated. It wasn't just favoritism. It was cowardice. He hadn't wanted to face me, hadn't wanted to admit that he sacrificed fairness to protect his son, so he wrapped it in a compliment and called it strength. That night, I confronted Evan. We met at the house that was now legally his. He poured himself a drink while I laid the documents on the table. "You knew," I said. He didn't deny it. "At first, Dad just helped," he said. Then things got out of hand. "You let him ruin everything," I replied, "and you let me believe it was ours." He looked uncomfortable. "You were always better at handling things." There it was again. The excuse. The justification. Strength as a burden. "You didn't just take the inheritance," I said quietly. "You took my future." He snapped back, defensive. "You act like you're a victim. You're fine. You've always been fine." That's when I understood something devastating. My pain didn't register to him because he'd never needed to consider it. I walked out without shouting, without crying, without asking for anything, because I finally saw the pattern clearly. My family didn't fail me because I wasn't enough. They failed me because I was convenient. But what none of them realized, not my father in his grave, not my brother standing in that house, was that convenience has a breaking point. And when it breaks, it doesn't beg. It changes direction. That night, I made a decision that would quietly alter everything. I stopped protecting a legacy that never protected me.
Walking away felt like falling at first. For weeks after that night, I woke up with a strange sensation that I had forgotten something important, like a limb or a voice. My phone stayed silent. No calls from Evan, no messages asking if I was okay. The business transferred fully into his name within a month, and just like that, 6 years of my life were reduced to a handshake and a polite goodbye email. I packed my office things in a single cardboard box. A stapler, a framed photo of my father and me from before things changed, a notebook filled with plans that would never happen there. As I closed the door behind me, the building didn't feel empty. I did. For the first time since my father died, I let myself grieve. Not just him, but the version of myself who believed loyalty would protect her. I cried in my car, in grocery store aisles, in the shower where the sound of water hid the truth. But grief doesn't last forever. Something else took its place. Clarity. I stopped trying to understand why my father did what he did. I stopped replaying conversations, imagining alternate endings. Instead, I asked myself a different question. What would I build if I stopped waiting for approval? The answer terrified me, and that's how I knew it was real. I took my savings, the small amount I had managed to keep separate, and rented a shared workspace downtown. I reached out to 2 former clients who had always asked for my direct number. I didn't mention the family drama, I didn't explain the fallout, I just said, "I'm available." They said yes. Then another, then another. Work came slowly at first, like hesitant footsteps on thin ice, but it came because people trusted me. Not my last name, not my father's reputation, but me. 6 months later, I registered my own company. No family name attached, just mine. Meanwhile, Evan struggled. I heard it through mutual contacts. He expanded too fast, took on contracts he couldn't manage, missed deadlines, lost clients who had stayed loyal only because of my presence. The same people he once called replaceable stopped answering his calls. The house, his house, became collateral. The irony was painful and poetic. One evening, nearly a year after everything fell apart, I got a message from him. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Sure." We met at a small cafe halfway between our lives. He looked older, tired. The confidence he wore like armor had cracked. "I didn't realize how much you did," he admitted, staring into his coffee. "Dad